Dread? As it turned out, Austin had no reason to be excited, for he had never played a 2D Metroid. How could one be so excited for a game series they have never played? Playing it up for views, perhaps? A man's crime cannot go unpunished, so the Lord of Gaming Opinions, who is Ron Swanson from Parks and Recreation for some reason, paid Austin a visit. How could you react so loudly to something you care nothing about? The Great Lord asked. I was excited for everyone who loves these games, Austin pleaded. This is unacceptable, the Great Lord yelled. I hereby curse you with the great void of nothingness. Wait, Austin begged, for I have an idea. What if I played all of the 2D Metroids in a row to pay for my crimes? That way I can be genuine in my reaction. The Great Lord paused in deep thought. Fine. You must play every 2D Metroid and nothing else until you're finished. Only then will the curse be lifted. So there Austin went, off on his journey. Would he be able to complete them all? Only time will tell.
One debt to society later.
It's over. It's finished. I have now at the very least played every 2D Metroid. I left myself just a little bit of Fusion so I could end the video when I end the curse. Since I've already played all of the games, this video is gonna be me comparing the games to each other rather than as a whole. But anyway, let's start off with how my journey began. I started off my journey with Super Metroid. I know that might seem like a weird place to start, but let me explain why I did it. There are 4 2D Metroid games, some of which have remakes that are just superior ways to play them. These are the 4 versions I'm going to be playing for this binge. It just so happens that Super Metroid not only was the first to come out of these 4 games, but it also set the tone for the series, and every other game plays off of what Super Metroid created. So Super almost feels like a natural beginning, even though it was technically Metroid 3. I think it's best to start off with the game that started the modern Metroid formula to truly judge how the series has evolved, or possibly devolved. As a Nintendo fan, this was a game I had my eye on forever. It just so happened that the Prime games caught my eye every time I got a Metroid itch. But after all of these years playing it through, I see the appeal. This game is awesome. This game's world is structured perfectly. It has a sense of progression that none of the other games are able to capture. This game is the Metroidvania, and I see why. This game's engine allows for endless sequence breaks that allow for so much creativity when exploring the world. This is the thing that really just isn't present in the other games. I truly felt like the world was my oyster in this game. As the series went on, the developers got way better at forcing you to stay on the path that they wanted you to be on. And even though this is an improvement in terms of the game's design, I think it actually hurts the games more than it helps them. The more linear structure of the future games fails to recapture the freedom that Super Metroid gives you, but with unlimited freedom comes its downsides as well. This is by far the most difficult of any of the games. Metroid's kinda known for having these bullshit parts that are just impossible for new players to figure out, and I think Super struggles from this more than any of the other games. If I didn't look a couple things up, I would still be playing Super Metroid to this day. The thing is though, this issue is kind of invalidated on all runs other than your first. Once you know where to go, the world is amazing and has by far the most replay value of all of the Metroid games. The game also has just like a couple of kinks with it being the first game in this Metroid formula. Wall jumping's a little bit more difficult. Scrolling through missiles isn't as smooth as other games, and the movement is generally a little bit floatier. These are all really minor issues, and other than the way you scroll through missiles, these things don't bother me at all. I think wall jumping being harder just makes pulling off crazy jumps that much more satisfying. And the floaty movement is just Super Metroid. I don't think I would want it any other way. The boss fights are also on another level in this one. Kraid, Crocomere, Ridley, Phantoon, and Mother Brain are just some of the examples. These fights are some of the best in the series, no question. To sum up my thoughts on Super Metroid, I think it's the worst game in the series in terms of giving direction to new players. But with that weakness also comes the strength of being the most open, deep, and replayable world in the series. If I had to pick one 2D Metroid to play for the rest of my life, it would 100% be Super Metroid.
Flashback.
Alright, 1 down, 3 to go. That wasn't so bad. Very good, the Great Lord said. 1/4 of your debt is paid. I feel you deserve a reward. You have now earned yourself a mild reaction to Metroid Dread. Dread? I'm mildly excited for that. I've played one of those games. Next up on my journey was Metroid Zero Mission. After the announcement of Dread, I heard so many people talking about Zero Mission and how it's the most underrated game in the series and how it's even better than Super Metroid. After playing Metroid Zero Mission, I can definitely see what the hype is about. This is a remake of Metroid 1 on the Game Boy Advance, so naturally it's a lot smaller scale than Super Metroid. However, out of all of the 4 games, this is the closest any of the games come to Super Metroid. Wall jumping functions basically exactly how it functions in Super Metroid. It's just a little easier to pull off. This, along with the fact that bomb jumping is really easy to do as well, means the sequence breaks are still very much there in this game. But unlike Super Metroid, this doesn't cause you to get lost because the game does a phenomenal job at telling the player where to go due to an updated map system. Metroid Zero Mission, bar none, has the best combination of freedom and structure of any of the 4 games. You never feel tied down, but at no point are you not sure where to go. It's the perfect mix. It also improves on all of the minor annoyances that Super Metroid had. You can now select missiles and power bombs just by holding L. Like I said before, wall jumping is way easier to pull off, and you don't get lost in this game. The movement also has a lot more weight to it, which a lot of people really like, myself included. Everything just feels a little bit more accurate in this one. The only real flaw I have with this game is that it's just really short. You can legitimately finish this game in one sitting if you really want to. I'm all for shorter games. In fact, I prefer them a lot of the time, but the thing is, less game means less substance, and less substance means less reason to come back. The 2 main bosses are Kraid and Ridley, and as someone who played Super Metroid right before this game, I wasn't blown away by these fights because it felt like I had kind of already done them before. I get this is a remake of Metroid 1, so it technically did it first, but it's very apparent they took a lot of inspiration from the Super Metroid versions of these fights. There's also an added mission in this game where you get to play as Zero Suit Samus. Funnily enough, this was the only time in any of the 4 games where I got to play as Zero Suit Samus, so it was a welcome surprise. It's a stealth mission where you're sneaking past these Chozos, and if they see you, they just kill you. It is so frustrating trying to get around these guys. It made me so mad at so many points. It is short though, but your pain is rewarded because once you get your power suit back, it is so satisfying to just melt through these things. They also add a special final boss, which is probably the coolest fight in the game. Out of all 4 of the Metroid games, this might be the most quality package. There's not much quantity there, but what is there is borderline perfect. To sum up my opinion on this game, I think it is absolutely the Metroid game you should recommend people to start out with. It's just easy enough, but it also gives you just enough room to explore where I think it would be perfect for a beginner. Once players get their Metroid legs with this game, I think they'll be perfectly equipped to take on Super Metroid.
Flashback.
All right, that game kind of slapped. Excellent, the Great Lord shouted in excitement. You have now earned yourself an average reaction to Metroid Dread. Again? Austin said confused. Don't you think this bit's getting kind of old? Do it, now! Oh my gosh, it's Metroid Dread. The 3rd game that I played was Metroid Samus Returns. Unfortunately, I don't have a 3DS capture card, so I'm gonna be using Nintendo Treehouse footage instead. We need to start a movement. Hashtag get the game base a 3DS capture card. I mean, I'd appreciate it. It's a remake of Metroid 2 on the original Game Boy, and the developers Mercury Steam did a phenomenal job at bringing this game to life. It was on some pretty bad hardware being on the original Game Boy, so they really had to get creative in terms of making this game feel modern. The engine is awesome and feels exactly how a modern 2D Metroid should feel. However, my issues with this game are really about the game Metroid 2 and how I don't think it was all that great to begin with. I think Mercury Steam was majorly held back by the game they were remaking, which makes me really excited for what they're gonna do with Dread. It's definitely my least favorite out of all 4 of the games I played, and let me try to explain why. The main issue is how the game is structured. Every time you get to a new area, you come across this door, and it tells you how many Metroids you have to kill in that area. In every single area, you track down all the Metroids, you kill them all, you go back to the door, and then you get to move on. There's usually somewhere around 5 to 10 Metroids per floor. The biggest problem with this game is that you have to fight the same bosses over and over and over again. You fight the Alpha Metroid 17 times and the Gamma Metroid 14 times throughout the game. That is just ridiculous, and it definitely got old quick. This was the first game where the sequence breaks really were not there for me. Bomb jumping is made irrelevant with the introduction of the spider ball, and wall jumping now functions like it does in Mario. Instead of being able to climb a wall, you now have to jump between 2 walls that are close enough to each other. Not that that matters, because like with bomb jumping, it would have been made irrelevant anyway with the introduction of the spider ball. Since you can't go to a new area until you found all of the Metroids in the area you're in, there's really no hopping between areas when you're not supposed to. You are on an extremely tight leash in this one. I give all the props in the world to Mercury Steam for making this game as good as it was, because I genuinely enjoyed it. Some of the fights they added were some of my favorite in the series. It's like I said before, I really think they were just tied down by Metroid 2. I loved the way the game felt, and I didn't think I was going to in the end, but it was just such a good engine, it was impossible not to like. That's why I'm so excited to see what they do with Metroid Dread. Still a good game. In fact, it was the only one that I 100% completed. I just think out of all 4 of them, it is by far the most flawed.
Flashback.
Okay, I've got to be honest. The tank is running empty after that one. My boy! The Great Lord shouted. Only 1 to go. I'm sure this reaction is going to be huge, but not too huge. No, I'm sick of this game. This wasn't part of the deal. I was supposed to beat all of the 2D Metroids. I never signed up to make some reaction for you every time I beat one. I'm the Lord of Gaming Opinions. I do as I please, the Great Lord said sternly. Well, sorry, buddy. It's not happening, Austin said. Fine. You can just sit there until you decide to behave. No, you can't make me do it. I'm not going to. I'll sit here forever. I don't care.
Many unbearable hours later.
Fine. Dread? Oh my gosh! I've played 3 out of 4 of those games. I'm extremely excited. Metroid Fusion was the final game on my binge. A fun fact about this game is that it was released alongside Metroid Prime, so Metroid fans were eating good in 2002. I'm not gonna lie, by this point in the binge, I was starting to feel some major Metroid fatigue. Playing games from the same series back to back to back starts to get a little tiresome after a while. Luckily for my sanity, this game is different, like real different. It was definitely a breath of fresh air for me, considering the way I played the games. Instead of going the traditional route and having the player explore a big world at their own free will, Metroid Fusion takes a much more linear approach. Samus is aided by a computer named after her former commander, Adam. This computer guides you through the whole game. It tells you how you're getting there, why you're going there, and everything in between. Even though there's not as much to explore, the strong point of this game is absolutely its atmosphere. The main enemies are these X-parasites, one of which has taken over Samus's old power suit. And this thing is ominous. I got a chill down my spine every time I came across it. And there's also really ominous boss fights like Nightmare, who has a very fitting name because his fight is a nightmare. He was so hard, but when I finally beat him, it was very satisfying. This game probably has more text in it than all of the other 3 combined. You're either being talked to by Adam or Samus is thinking to herself about the situation. I actually thought the story was pretty compelling in this one. I mean, the beginning where Samus almost dies to the X-Parasite and loses her suit and just all of it was really cool. With all of the other games, I feel like you gotta look some stuff up to fully understand what the story's trying to convey. But with Metroid Fusion, I feel like I got it. I know exactly what happened, and it was a good, compelling, and scary story. This approach for a Metroid game is really interesting to me. I can see it being really hit or miss for some people. I think it landed especially well with me because I was getting sick of Metroid games by this point. I was ready for something fresh and unique, and this game provided it. However, I definitely hope this was a one-time thing. Although it was nice not having to search for my objectives, I just feel like that's not Metroid. I'm all for a little bit of direction, but I feel like this game just went a little bit overboard with it. The thing about this game though is I feel like it has a really strong identity. I feel like it knew exactly what it wanted to be and it absolutely nailed it. Overall, I really enjoyed Fusion. It's not very often a series can go in such a different direction and go over so well with the fans. I also think it helped that it was released alongside Metroid Prime, so Metroid fans had nothing to complain about at the time. Metroid Fusion stands alone as the only Metroid game in this style, and they really did a great job.
Epilogue.
Well, that ends Metroid Fusion, and that ends this binge. You've done it, my boy. The curse has been lifted, the Great Lord said with great pride. Now you can be genuine in your reaction. I couldn't, or I guess I should say, wouldn't have done it without you, Mr. Lord. Goodbye, the game base. May your reactions be genuine from this day forward. Well, I guess all that's left is for me to react to the trailer one last time. Wait a second. He's gone. Why am I doing this? In fact, the last thing I want to be doing right now is reacting to this trailer for a freaking millionth time. You know what? I'm out. Enjoy the game, everybody.
This is a robbery! Put the money in the bag!
Please don't hurt me. I have a family.
Yeah, I had a family once. My dad kicked me out because I wasn't subscribed to the game base.
And he was in his right to do so.
Just give me the money and everything will be okay. You can go home to your family.
Okay, here you go.